severe weather in 3 different places, including from North Carolina to Virginia, Wyoming to South Dakota, and also northern Minnesota. Good morning, I'm meteorologist Pew. Today is September 15, 2025. So starting with severe weather, we have 3 marginal risks, or 1 out of 5 in all those areas that I just mentioned. But all 3 risk areas pose different risks. So for example, there's a 5% chance to see an isolated wind event up to 60 miles per hour from Wyoming, South Dakota, and also northern Minnesota. But for northern Minnesota specifically, there's also a 5% chance to see an isolated hail event. And from North Carolina to Virginia, there's neither of those, but there's a 2% chance to see an isolated tornado. So let's talk about the East Coast first, because this kind of phenomenon doesn't happen too often, where we have a low pressure at this high of latitude where it's going to be traveling to the west. But in this case, we have a very slow moving low, and because low pressure is a counterclockwise flow, it's bringing in a lot of that tropical air straight into the North Carolina and Virginia coast. But it's traveling towards the coastline instead of drifting to the east, because if we look at 500 millibars or midway to the troposphere, we actually have an isolated low pressure system somewhere around North Carolina. Mid to upper level flow pretty much dictate what's going to happen at the surface and where things are going to go. And because we have an upper level low, and that's also counterclockwise flow, it's going to be pulling in that surface low into the North Carolina, Virginia coast. And because we have a decent amount of shear on the east side of this upper low, that's exactly why we don't see a tropical storm or hurricane forming. Because tropical storms and hurricanes actually don't like a lot of shear, because they don't want to tilt those updrafts. But also in addition to that, if we go a little bit lower but still above the surface at 850 millibars, we do have a low level jet that's going to be increasing during the night. So this 2% isolated tornado risk is actually going to happen during the night after 10 p.m. And so the time frames of when these storms are going to occur, it's pretty much going to occur all day today and up until Wednesday. But like I said, most of the intensification is going to happen after 10 p.m. and into the night and into the next morning. So for the total amount of rainfall from now until Wednesday, from North Carolina to Virginia, some places may see upwards to 6 inches or greater. So speaking of the tropics, we still have that tropical disturbance in the Atlantic that now has an increased chance of something forming, where a 40% chance of something forming in the next 48 hours and an 80% chance of something forming in the next 7 days. So we just have to keep an eye on it. But on the flip side, if we look at the Pacific, we have Tropical Storm Mario, and it's not really going to go anywhere inland, but because it's adjacent to the Mexico and California coastline, we may see some mid-level moisture in the next few days, bringing more monsoons. Okay, now back inland, talking about the other risk areas, looking at 500 millibars or midway to the troposphere, we have that negatively tilted trough that we saw in the plains is now reaching all the way up towards Canada. So I'm sure places in Manitoba and Canada are probably having a lot of severe risk today, but places in northern Minnesota are still at the tail end of that really great shear that we see. And we still have a lot of warm, moist air being advected into this area, so we may or may not see severe weather around 1 p.m. Central Time. And as for Wyoming and South Dakota, you guys are seeing remnants of a negatively tilted trough that we saw a lot of rain in the Pacific Northwest and Idaho and Montana yesterday. And so places like Wyoming are probably already seeing showers this morning, and we're going to see intensifications of some storms around 1 p.m. Mountain Time, and that's going to travel eastward into South Dakota really late into the evening. And that's why we may see